A quick but important message from me before we get started, so please don't fast forward this. The Uncover Your Purpose 3-day challenge is back. It is my free offering to women from all over the world who want to up-level their lives and learn how to find and step into their purpose. From the 27th to the 30th of March at 12:30 p.m. GMT, I will be leading you through a powerful, impactful challenge that won't cost you anything other than 30 minutes of your time. And within that, you'll learn about identity, shadow, inner child, manifestation, and so much more. And there will be prizes up for grabs. The first one being a scholarship place on the Recondition Your Life Academy, which you all know changes women's lives. The last UYP challenge was epic and dynamic, and this one will be even bigger and better. Just head to the link in the show notes right now or go to laurenvakneen.co.uk/UYP to register your place. Trust me, ladies, you don't want to miss this one.
Part of receiving intuition is you've got to interpret the signs because it's speaking in code. And I think that one of the things when I'm encouraging people to dial it up or to lean into it or to study it is that you've got to be present to what for you is a distraction that pulls focus, that doesn't allow you to be present enough to notice that something's tapping you on the shoulder.
Hi, I'm Lauren Vakneen, and you're listening to the Reconditioned podcast. I created this podcast following my journey from severe disability since infancy to complete wellness as a way to share my passion of healing the whole self. Because I learned in my own journey to wellness and through my 2 decades in the wellness industry that it makes no difference what you're here to heal. It all requires the same whole person approach. We tackle everything from trauma, health optimization, and neuroplasticity to manifestation, holistic parenting, and everything in between to help you create an optimized life of well-being, abundance, self-mastery, and purpose. You're not meant to live a life of stagnation, and you're not meant to be just fine. So hang around and let me help you recondition your life back to wholeness. Welcome back to Reconditioned, everyone. Thank you for being here once again. I just appreciate you being here every time. And maybe this is the first time you're listening. So if that is the case, I truly appreciate you. Welcome to Reconditioned. I hope you enjoy what you're hearing. And today's episode is with my good friend, Jen Finley. I'm so excited for you to hear this. Me and Jen could just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And unfortunately, we had to cut it at an hour and a half because it could just keep going on, and we went off on tangents, but fun tangents and good tangents. And the reason I wanted Jen on the podcast, episode 101 was with James Wedmore, who is Jen's partner, and she also helps him run his very successful business and his podcast, the Mind Your Business podcast, which is one of the top business podcasts, I don't know, on planet Earth maybe. And Jen is an incredible intuitive and has deep access to her psychic gifts. And, you know, on this podcast, we talk about all sorts of things and everything that comes under, we don't niche it here, right? And that's the reason why I created this podcast. I created this podcast as a way, as a hub for bringing together every possible topic within the world of wellness and inner growth. And connection to spirituality is a huge part of that. For me, I always say you've got the physical, mental, and emotional healing, and then the spiritual connection, spiritual development is the icing on the cake, the stuff that solidifies it all. Doing all that work is all well and good, but without having the spiritual connection and understanding what you truly are, who you truly are, and where you are connected to and who you are connected to, none of the other stuff really takes root, because your energy still isn't in the right place. And as you know, if you listen to this podcast, everything I talk about is energy, because everything is energy. Everything that exists in this universe has a vibrational structure. Therefore, everything is energy. And we call towards us the energy that vibrates at the same frequency as the things we're putting out, which is how manifestation works. So everything is spiritual, right? So when people go, I'm not spiritual. Well, okay, you are. You are, because you're a spirit. You're a cosmic being. You just happen to be having a human experience right now. And this human experience you're having might be new. You might not have been here many times before. So maybe on your journey right now, you believe that the 3D is all there is. And that's cool. No judgment there, because that's where you're at. And that is fine, that's where you're at with it. But you are in fact a spirit. So there. And there's just no getting around it. And I've had so many experiences my whole life. My whole life has been a series after series of experiences that show me how deeply I am connected to my higher self, the capital S self, source, divine energy, whatever you want to call it. And the more I go on in my journey, the more I work with my shaman, the more I develop my spiritual practice, my meditation practice, the more I just even go out and walk in nature and look at it and go, this is just magical, magnificent. This can't just be all there is, right? This has come from somewhere. Look at the way a tree breathes, for God's sake. How can that just be nothing? And the more I go on, the happier I become, because I'm able to look at trees and go, wow, something crap might have happened in my day, but wow, look, the tree's breathing. The flowers are blooming. Life is incredible. That is spirituality. So the more I go on, the more I just kind of deepen my spiritual practice. And then I look back at my whole life, even my childhood, of experiences I had with spirit, psychic gifts, whatever you want to call it. And Jen and I go into this in depth in this episode. But more importantly, for those of you listening who are interested in this but don't know where to start, Jen gives tangible tools on how to start developing those skills more. So how to develop your intuition, how to move more deeply into that place of intuition, and how to know what your primary clair is in clairvoyance, clairaudience. She will go into all of that. She'll explain that if you don't know what that is yet, but how to notice which is your primary one and how to develop on it. So that was really cool, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So enjoy the episode and let me know your thoughts, as always, on when I post this on Instagram at Lauren Vaknine. And obviously you can find Jen. I've put her Instagram details in the show notes. And for those who have not yet seen or would like to work with me one-on-one, I have a few events coming up. So go to the website, check those out. I have a very special couples healing workshop. If you want to go deep into the work of healing within your partnership, creating a sacred conscious union, getting yourself and your partner to a place of deep healing, deep internal knowing, so that you can come together in sacred union, this is for you. It is incredible. It's going to be an incredible day. I'm hosting it alongside my husband as well, which will be super fun. And then I'm going to be taking some workshops at the big retreat festival in June, so check them out. I've got some other festivals and stuff coming up. I have got a couple of online workshops for killing kittens. So do check those out, because anyone can join those. They will be on my website, and they will also be on the Killing Kittens website. They're online workshops, mostly around divine feminine, body image, and then using your sexuality to call in financial abundance. So sexual alchemy, that one's called. So that will be fab. And then in December, I'm hosting a winter retreat in the beautiful 42 acres retreat space in Somerset. That is going to be immensely beautiful. So check those out on my website, and I will look forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode. So without further ado, here is Jennifer Finley. Jennifer Finley is a performance and leadership coach and co-host of the Mind Your Business podcast alongside her partner, James Wedmore. She is the growth team manager for Team Wedmore, the head coach for James's Performance Mastermind, and program director for Indispensable Leadership Academy. Jen is trained in multiple coaching methodologies, including neurolinguistic programming, Coactive Training Institute, and currently studying at Robbins Madana's training. She holds 2 certifications in neurolinguistic programming, including one from the founder of NLP, Dr. Richard Bandler. Jen has 600 plus hours certified training in yogic philosophy, asana, yang and yin practices, mindfulness, and meditation. She is also a Usui Reiki master, apprenticing for many years with master healers, learning the art of intuition, energy healing, and psychic reading. And I'm so excited to have her here. Jen, hi.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here, Lauren. Good morning for me. Good evening for you.
Good evening for me. Good morning for you. A little bit more normal times than when I recorded with James, because that was like in the middle of the night, early hours of morning for him. So he's cray.
Well, that's when he comes online. You know, he starts getting that creative flow around 9 p.m. every evening.
It's great. I feel like, because I have a friend who lives in Malibu, and she's up, like she speaks to me at like 1, 2 in the morning, and she's painting and she's outside on her deck and doing, and I feel like if I lived in a hot country, and also maybe if I didn't have kids, like my kids wake up at like 5 o'clock. I just can't do that. You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, and we joke that the energy in Sedona, sometimes you just have to go with it, because even last night, the energy was so high, and I was awake at 2 a.m. going,
I know you were messaging me.
In the morning. I know. So I feel like it's a more conductive here to stay up at night, especially around the full moon, because we're just in the middle of these vortexes. But yes, we're night owls over here.
Yeah, it's amazing. And actually, let's get onto that a bit later about, you know, these vortexes and these portals of energy, and let's get onto all of that. Before we start, as you know, I always start by asking the same question. So what have you done so far today to support your wellness?
Today, like every day, I woke up to a puppy cuddle.
And he's not exactly a puppy, is he? Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, they are not. I call them puppies. I've got 2 dogs. One is Indiana Bones, our little 40-pound Australian Shepherd. She's a female. And then our big boy, Bruce Wayne, who is a 95-pound Rottweiler. And you've never met a dog that's thinks he's a lap dog. He needs a cuddle in the morning. So he has this huge bed, and I just get in his bed with him, and he snuggles with me for a few minutes, and it just fills my heart up with this warm heart. And you know, they're just pure love.
There's
dogs,
nothing like dog cuddles. There's nothing like it in the world.
Yeah. And just to kick off the morning with that, even before I let them out to go potty or feed them, we do a cuddle huddle.
Oh, I love it. So that's your way to start your morning, which I think is lovely, because that actually releases like happy hormones. So that is,
I get that endorphin rush.
Yeah, conducive to wellness for sure. So we've got so much to talk about, and I know you and I kind of get on it and then we don't stop. So yes. I want to start here for those who don't know you and you've never been on the podcast before. You have quite a background when it comes to spirituality, intuition, your psychic gifts, as well as being like this badass entrepreneur and businesswoman. So can you take us through your background and kind of how all this fits together?
Yes. So let's see. Where to begin? I grew up in an environment that was very psychically open. My ancestry is Native American on both sides, actually, but my mom in particular is extremely psychic, and I'm an identical twin. And my mom and my grandmother raised my sister and I with this beautiful openness of being able to communicate. They always told us we communicate within the family. They never presented it to me as like, we're going to you use this gift on other people or to read others. But I remember being 4 years old. That's the first memory I have of tuning in psychically. And I had lost my favorite pencil. It was one of those, do you remember those in the 90s, a little pencil with a fuzzy teddy bear on the top? Yes. So I asked, and I grew up in a Christian upbringing. So I prayed to my angels and asked, where is it? And I heard in my left ear, go to this place, open this cabinet, open this box. I had a little stationary box and I forgot that I'd put it in this cabinet. So I go and I open the box and there it is. And my mom was helping me look for it. And she said, how did you find it? And I said, oh, my angels told me where it was. And rather than going, what? My mom said, oh, very good. Yes, that's so good that you're talking to your angels. And my mother and my grandmother, anytime that my sister and I would have dreams or we would come to them and say, I dreamt that I met our grandfather, or I saw Mimi in heaven, she told me this, they would always like, wow, the children are so in tune. So I grew up in that environment, and I think I just expanded it more and more in the container as I began to be really interested in the dynamics of spirituality. Like I said, I grew up in a very traditional Christian upbringing, private schools, and that was always the pathway that I was given. Or presented with as a child. And then when I became a young adult, I took a course in world religion, and my teacher was an author of, he was a pluralist. He believed, like, the way he explains it in his book is like, if you imagine that there's a huge subway map of how to get to God or how to get to enlightenment and consciousness or source, and there's all these routes on the map. And some people choose the blue line because they know that gets them where they want to go. But there's also all these other maps. If you know the London tube system, you could take the blue line and then skip to the red line and then get on the brown line. And eventually you would get where you want to go. And that concept interested me so much. So I started delving into Buddhism, and I was like constructing these papers of like, look at the parallels of what the Buddha taught to what Christ taught and what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. And then I started studying yoga, and then I met my Reiki master, and these teachers kept magnetizing into my life by, some might say coincidence, but I think I just attracted them. They would just kind of walk into my life and I go, you're my next teacher. And I became obsessed with learning about the world religions and energy and mindfulness and how do these intersect. James introduced me to NLP really because he and I in 2009, I think, got really interested in Tony Robbins. And my Reiki master at the time had done NLP training with Tony back in the 80s, I think. And she was talking to us about fire walks, and we were like, what? We got to learn about this. So I feel like that's NLP is what bridged me from the woo-woo spirituality side into performance coaching and how it could apply to business. The way that when I started getting certified in NLP, and as you said in my bio, I've got 2 certifications, and I went and studied with the guy that founded it, Dr. Richard Bandler, which I get DMs all the time. Where do I study NLP? And I always say, if you're going to study it, go to the source because he's still teaching. And NLP is like the science of
I wish I studied it under him.
Well, go get
I can still do it. Yeah.
One.
I mean, I'll do another one.
Let's go together. I'll do it again.
Let's do it.
Yeah, he teaches in London. So I'll just come over there. You and I will go to a Richard Bandler training.
Well, that's your next excuse to come to London. I know how much you love London.
I love it. I'll come get my master prac because I have a normal certificate. I'm not master level yet. And James and I have been wanting to do our master prac certs. But when I learned that, I thought, wow, this is teaching. In meditation, you're looking at the way that you receive thoughts. What's your brain doing? You're thinking all the time, and you're releasing that. I'm going to release the thinking mind, or the monkeys on the leash, as the Buddha would say. And then in NLP, you're learning actually the sequence in which you're thinking. Like, are you getting a picture? Are you receiving a feeling? Are you talking to yourself in your own head, or are you paying attention to something that's auditory outside of you? And so I started exploring bridging these 2 worlds of neurolinguistics, meditation, and spirituality. And then I just kind of carved out a niche for myself with it. At the time, I was working with Lululemon, where I spent over a decade working there and like teaching meditation to athletes, teaching meditation inside of teams, performance coaching using NLP. And my career at Lululemon as a manager trained me in business. We joke at Lululemon that Lululemon is secretly an MBA in business. That if you're in the management program there, you're getting trained in how to run a multi-million-dollar business and drive team performance. And so I had these 2 interests, like the spiritual yogic world, and then this performance coach. And now what I do on Team Wetmore is this beautiful marriage of the two of those, which is just, 10 years ago, Lauren, I wrote a goal that I would be a performance coach that could go in to businesses, and a CEO could tell me, this is the breakdown we're having. And I would go in and say, this is the content you need. I'm going to deliver it. I'll produce the breakthrough for your team. And I wrote at Lululemon, and then I scratched it out and was like, I better be a little bit more open about, because I don't really care where this comes in. And when James offered me my role for Indispensable Leadership Academy to run my own program, that was the realization of a goal I had written 9 years ago. So now that's exactly what I do inside of his mastermind and with his clients. But yeah, that's that my long-winded answers. You're going to bear with me. No,
I like the long-winded answers because we really get to know you. So you're really, like you say, marrying the two between, kind of spirituality and business. And I love talking about this. I really love talking about this. And actually, maybe it was James who inspired a lot of this in me, probably. But kind of, although I've always had this in me, right? Because I've always been, quote unquote spiritual, also raised by, spiritualists. And you were saying about how your mum, that it was never weird. They were like, oh, okay, cool. What did they say? Like, it was the same. When I got diagnosed with arthritis when I was 2, one of the first things my mum did was take me to a spiritual healer, a psychic surgeon. And he's like hugely world renowned now, this guy. And I was going to him for years. Yeah, his name's Ray Brown. And he channeled the spirit of this guy called Paul of, I'm going to probably get it wrong, but Paul of Circes or something like that. And we would see him go into trance. Like we would literally see his face change.
Oh, his voice chills all over my body. Wow.
You would love this guy. You got to look him up, Ray Brown. And I haven't seen him for years, but it wasn't like I can go like this and my voice will change, but you can still see here it's my voice. Yeah. His voice, which like everything about him. And I was super young, right? I was like 4, 5, 6, 7, like going for years. And my mum used to say she could see the steam coming out of his head, which she saw as steam. Now we understand she was seeing the energy.
Fields. Yes.
So like that was my experience, never being, and we never had a fear of death in our family. It was like completely, angels and all of that. What's so
funny is same with my family and also whenever someone passed in my family, we had this tradition where they'd tell you what sign they were going to send when they made it to the other side.
Yeah. Well, we kind of had that with my grandma as well. And
the story like wild. Like my when my great grandmother passed, my Mimi, my grandmother, so her daughter, had roses planted in her backyard that were Don Juan roses, red roses. And in Texas, the winter comes, it freezes, the roses go away, and then in the spring they rebloom. In the spring after she passed, they rebloomed and they were white. And my grandmother's children, so my aunt, uncle, and my mom said, Mary Jane, did you replant these roses? When did you do this? And she said, no, Mimi did that. And the whole family was like, oh, yeah, she's on the other side. It wasn't like, what? That's not possible. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, okay, that's the signal.
Yeah. But don't you think, this is a whole subject in itself, right? Because I talk a lot in my work about childhood conditioning and how everything is conditioning, right? Like the way we become and the identity we operate from as adults is based on the conditioning put on us as children. Unintentional conditioning, our parents, mostly doing their best and whatever, but these little things they say, these little ways that they condition us into. So if your parents would have been like, don't be silly, the angels, there are no angels. And something must have happened in the ground that year for the roses to have changed, but they didn't. They let that flourish in you. And then what that did was allow you to develop that. Whereas if they would have said something else, perhaps that wouldn't have developed in you because that would have been, kind of crushed in you.
Yeah. And what I appreciate that my mom did looking back, it's so funny when you surpass the age that your parents were when they were raising you, and you're like, I'm like having an appreciation for how young you were and you were just doing your best, But my mom listened to the episodes that James, Catherine, and I recorded.
Yeah, they were great episodes.
Thank you. We had a blast recording those. and we've got a plan for a sequel. We got more coming. But she reached out to me and said, I'm listening to this and you were talking about what shuts off intuition for people. And I want to add something. I think that it's not broadly accepted in society or within families or communities. And so when people say, no, shush, that's weird. I hear that's weird all the time. And that was something that was one of the first things that my Reiki master corrected me on was, if you want it to be weird, keep saying that. But if you want it to be your normal, then you should say, oh, how cool, or like, oh, thank you for that message.
Right.
And I love that my mom, she would keep those things private if she knew that she didn't have the right audience. Like she wasn't walking out into her social circle going, everyone, my grandmother just turned the roses in the backyard white. She wasn't going to invite that skepticism in Central Texas. But she still was like, between the family, we were like, I believe that that's what happened, Yeah,
totally.
And what you said that made me think of something was that this, the disjointedness that people have between their spirituality and their business life, I think that does come into play with wellness. And I would love your perspective on this too, that when people split their life up into those categories of, this is who I am over here.
Right.
This is who I am at work, then actually it can cause a lot of undue stress in the body. And that's something that I had to learn too, because originally when I said I want to be a leader at Lululemon, the team related to me as like the healer. I was the yogi, the healer. It was not uncommon to walk into work and have someone pull me aside and go, Jen, can you give me a psychic reading? I'm dating a new guy. I need to know. and I had to establish like, what's the version of me that's not walking in as the healer. I'm walking in as the manager, as the leader. And for a while, I swung the pendulum too far away from that. And it was like, I stopped wearing color. I started dressing in all black. I stopped talking about anything that was spiritual or anything personal. It was like people knew that I did that, but only my close friends. And then I started to kind of weave it back as I learned. I think a lot of business people can do that. Is the more you develop your career, the more you start to crack open that nut of like, I can show up as my whole self at work. And Brene Brown does a beautiful job of that too, of explaining, how do you do that? How do you be vulnerable and open in yourself, but also have authority and lead? But I think that's a key to wellness, is being able to integrate yourself in all areas of your life.
This season of Reconditioned is made possible thanks to HIFAS de TERRA. And I'm a little bit obsessed with them, and I want to tell you why. So if you follow me on social media, you'll know I talk about mushrooms a fair bit. Yes, I am that wild, and no, not the psychedelic kind. Not this time anyway. I've known about the crazy health benefits of medicinal mushrooms for a while, especially after watching Fantastic Fungi on Netflix, but I never found a brand that I fully trusted. And then I came across HIFAS de TERRA, and I am not exaggerating when I say it has been life-changing. They have medicinal mushroom products to support autoimmune diseases, allergies, hormonal imbalances, gut health, brain function, emotional well-being, musculoskeletal issues. The list is endless. And because they're one of the few mycotherapy companies to actually carry out clinical trials on their products, they've been able to develop their Onco range, specifically for cancer. And potentially my favorite, they have products for children's immune systems and the gut-brain axis. Great for ADHD, sensory issues, and gut support. These have got my kids through this winter of illness, and they've made a huge difference to my son's sensory challenges. I'm swearing by them. HIFAS de TERRA mushrooms are not only certified organic, but they use the fruiting body of the mushroom as opposed to the root, which even the so-called top mycotherapy companies are not doing, because it's more time-consuming and more expensive, but HIFAS are. Spoiler, you get more benefits from the fruiting body, which is one of the reasons HIFAS products are more effective. The concentration and content of their products are also much higher than standard brands, and the company are constantly striving for quality, effectiveness, and safety, putting over 60% of their profits back into research. These products have changed my life, and I want you all to have access to this level of healing. So visit hifasdeterra.co.uk That's HIFASDATERRA.co.uk and use code Lauren15 for 15% discount. Thank you so much to HIFAS de TERRA. Absolutely, because if you're not doing that, you're not acting from a place of authenticity. And as you know, because I know how much you know about manifestation, there is no ability to manifest because you're not vibrating at a high enough frequency if you're not operating from authenticity, right? So like, I always think that bringing that all in together, integrating it together. And this is, we'll go on to intuition now because I really want to delve into that. But that's kind of where I was going with how important it always was for me to integrate those, right? Because it's like you can, and I see this on like the different kind of posts I have to post on Instagram to what I have to post on LinkedIn to all the business people that are watching. And I'm like, no, I'm still going to be my woo self, because actually that I can't operate from a place of inauthenticity. And I find that, and I know you'll agree with this, and I know Catherine absolutely agrees with this, and she's actually coming on the podcast in a couple of months, good. Yeah, I'm so excited. Is that when you start operating from that place of complete authenticity, then you become magnetic to your manifestation. So you become more abundant. So you think that you're repelling people, but actually you're attracting to you what's meant to come to you. So even if you're, you know, I don't want to use the word repelling, but repelling the people who are not meant for you, that's okay, you know?
That's okay. Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. I love that point of authenticity. It almost brings up that conversation of the law of integrity, that when you're in sync with your soul, is how James puts it, you know, wellness is in being in alignment, is being in sync with your soul. That is like a magnet. That's, I call it the cosmic flypaper. You know, that like, gratitude and alignment and integrity are the cosmic flypaper for bringing the things into your life that you want more of. And what a gift to, when you align with your true self, then the universe starts bringing you things that are also in line with your true self.
Because, you know, like I always say to my clients as well, and like, I always use my own story of this. I was doing all the right things, you know, quote unquote, the right things for my health. I'd already studied nutrition. I was doing all the right supplements. I knew what my deficiencies were, yada, yada, yada. Why was I still not healing? I didn't heal until I had healed every aspect of myself, right? So I had to get to the point where my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of self were all aligning. I had healed my trauma, and I was, you know, really developing my spiritual practice, and I'd healed my inner child, and I had worked towards my purpose, and I was operating from authenticity, and, you know, all the other myriad things that come with it, ancestral healing, like all the stuff I teach. That all has to align and integrate together. And that is what creates wellness. So I love that you kind of brought wellness into it, because for me, it was coming from a place of, you know, severe chronic illness, really having to align all of that, because that is me operating authentically, uncovering all the conditioning, uncovering all the crap that took me out of being who I was meant to be before all of that. And regardless of doing all those things for my physical body, there was no healing until I'd healed my whole self. So
you know what's so interesting about that I find that is broadly accepted in the 3D, but then people have trouble accepting this sometimes. On some people that are more, you know, logical thinkers are going, what do you mean I have to heal spiritually in order to heal my body? But what's so intriguing to me is, as a metaphor, in Sedona, we have lots of furry creatures. We're in the middle of the wilderness, and especially we live backing up to a national park. So my car has been in the shop I just got it back. It's been in the shop for 3 months because a little furry creature, I'm going to say a mouse because that makes me feel better about whatever was chewing my engine, destroyed the engine. And we had to have so much work done on it for 3 months. They're like, well, we replaced that, but now we found this. And we replaced that, but it just won't turn on. And they kept calling me back with these updates of, well, it should be working, but it's not yet. And then when I went to pick it up, I turned it on and the steering wheel was trembling, just slightly, like just vibrating. And the woman behind the desk went, well, we didn't balance the tires. Maybe the tires need to be balanced. So they go back and they balance the tires, and then it's resolved.
Right.
But what's so fascinating to me about that was there were about 15 things wrong. It wasn't just the engine. Right. And that last piece was we're going to balance the tires. And I think that's how I approach wellness is what's going on external, internal, your diet, your thinking, your practices, your habits, your stress level, your relationships, what you say to yourself, what you say to others. Some people are extraordinarily kind to others, but they don't give that kindness to yourself. And when you start scientifically looking at the effect that words have on water, which we've now proven.
Oh my God, yeah. The nanoparticles of water hold the water memory. It's so fascinating.
You know, you've got to be speaking, good stuff into that body. And if you don't expect it to form some sort of crystal that you don't want in there. You know?
Absolutely. And that's how it happens. And this is why I say to people, like, your thoughts will metastasize into something else, right? Do you want them to metastasize into a mass, a cancer, or would you like them to metastasize into the manifestation of, you know, the life of your dreams? And, you know, because it will go whichever way you choose. Okay. You are like the intuition queen, and you have developed many practices as well around intuition. Yes. And this is something I love. And this was the main reason that I wanted to get you on today, because I love to give people tools, right? I love to give people tangible things that they can actually do to up-level their lives. So let's talk about intuition and all your ways of strengthening intuition, and like, what even is intuition at the most basic level? And I just want to start here very quickly, because I want to let you go off on a tangent and really take it where you need to go. But for anyone out there, woman or man, who has not read Women Who Run with the Wolves, have you read that book?
You know what? It's been on my list for forever. And that's wild that you suggested that, because one of the teachers that showed up in my life when I moved to Australia was my yoga teacher, Tina. And she was reading that book when I was studying with her. And she popped in my head. Here's intuition full circle. When you were asking about my journey, I got an image of her in my head of like, that was the first person that I took yoga from, where I understood what I had been doing for 10 years wasn't yoga.
Right.
You know, I think that there's a lot of yoga in the West that's more about, let's move the body really quickly and tone arms and get a workout. And for the first time when I started studying with her, I had this link of like, yoga can actually be this doorway of conditioning the mind to stay in an uncomfortable place and yet find the ease and the beauty in it. And as she started to teach me that, then I leaned into, I think I want to teach yoga and go do my certification. And that is one of her favorite books. And that is the book she was reading.
I mean, there are entire societies around this book uncovering, unraveling the lessons, the gifts in this book. And it's not something that you just read from cover to cover like a novel. It's a Bible. You go back to it, you leave it, you come back. Like, your intuition tells you when you want to read it and when you don't. I'm currently rereading it. Okay, and I'm going to read it for the first time with you. Oh, yay. Yay. And there are so many, like, you'll love it because of all the fables, and it's all fables. It's all ancient fairy tales and fables and stuff like that. And it's all about the connection to the inner wild woman, right? And by that, she doesn't mean like a crazy woman running around the desert naked. She means like the wild woman is the woman who has not been tamed by society, by conditioning. Right. The woman that we were meant to be before any of that happened. And before any of that happened, what did we have deep access to? Because what is our number one gift as a woman? It's our intuition, right? That is the feminine. Intuition. The feminine energy is all about intuition. And so I've become so much more deeply connected. I've always had deep access to my intuition. But definitely over the last few years developed that. But I love all your little practices and stuff you have for doing that. So take us deep into intuition, please.
So, well, at first I started developing these practices because when I met my Reiki master, she was so incredibly tuned in that I was like, this is a superpower. I told this story on the podcast. So if you've heard the intuition episodes that James and I have, I talk about this inciting incident of, whoa, I want to learn to do that. I met her for the first time I was teaching ballet fitness in Los Angeles, and she walked in. This is how I recall it happening. I don't even think she said hello to me. She walked in and hugged me and then whispered in my ear, "It's not your fault that your father's sick." burst into tears and kind of fell into her. And then she walked into the studio locker room to change for the class. And I turned and looked at my boss at the time and said, "Who is that?" And he said, "That's my best friend. She's a Reiki master. She does that to people." And I just went up to her and was like, "I want to learn everything that you have to teach. Please, may I be your apprentice?" And every Monday for 4 years, I would go to her house in Pasadena, and there had to be an energy exchange, the law of Aini and reciprocity. Yep. So I would offer her a Reiki healing to the best of my capacity to whatever level I had learned. And then she would just let me be with her for the day and ask her any questions that I wanted. And she was so open that this is a true story. She was actually playing with a dog when she was a child, and her family didn't tell her that that was a dead dog. She was playing with like the ghost of a dog. And she just, "Oh, the dog goes to sleep on my bed every night." And she was that way. Like we were eating lunch one time, me, James's sister, and Arlita. And she is eating, and Jill and I are having a conversation, and she looks up and she goes, "Jill, is your boyfriend," Jill's husband now, "is your boyfriend an architect?" And she went, "Yes." And she puts her head down, and we go, and Jill and I look at each other and we're like, "Okay, that was cool." And we just keep talking. And then she looks back up and she goes, "And he's not from here. He's from Scotland, England." And Jill goes, "Yeah, he's English, but his family's Scottish." Wow. And then she just went back to eating her lunch, and that was common. So I was studying with her, and I learned so much. I think that's the best way to learn, is to find someone that you want to emulate and you want to learn from, and just say, like, "I'm going to watch you. I want to observe you. I want to pay attention to how you do this." And one thing that I observed her doing was she was always willing to stop her day to go, "I think I'm receiving something right now." She didn't walk into my studio and go, "Oh, that woman needs to hear that her father's going to be okay." She got that, and then she delivered the message. But inside of that, I also started learning meditation and paying attention to what turns this on, what turns up the volume. I use a lot of sound words. If you're into NLP, you can hear I'm extremely audial. So my language is auditory, what makes it louder, what turns the volume up, what can you hear? James is very visual. So
are you clairaudient then?
That's my primary. Right. And I have this theory that when you learn your primary learning modality in NLP, it could be also your primary psychic receiving mode. I was I'm clairvoyant, but clairaudience is the one that I was most comfortable with and that came in first. Mm-hmm. And clairaudient kids, if anyone's listening out there and you had a lot of ear infections when you were a kid, that's very common for clairaudient children, that when you're a kid, you're just like too much stimulus, and your body has a physical reaction of, "I'm going to block this out." Wow. And my mom said, I had chronic ear infections as a kiddo. But I started paying attention to, when do I receive guidance, and what is the difference between my inner voice and my intuition? And for me, intuition is that level of tuning to the invisible thread that's connecting us to source, our guides, our support system, to spirit. And you can select, just like when you pick up the telephone and you select who you want to talk to. I think that our communication is almost on this echelon of like a pyramid. Imagine a pyramid of hierarchy. Like if we start with earthbound guides, animals showing up. My mom finds feathers on her path all the time. The Native Americans were very big on that animals show up as communicators, that the spirit of animals can tell you something about what's happening for you in the 3D realm. And so that's the first level of unlocking intuition. Sometimes is something that's more in the 3D. Like I always say, clairvoyance first level, level 1 on the ground floor would be, I see feathers a lot. I see animals a lot. I don't know why, but a hawk follows me around. I see the same word written on over and over. I hear the same song on the radio. I look at the clock and I see the same numbers. I see 11:11. These are things that are happening on the earth plane that are 3D. Mm-hmm. And when I first started tapping into, I want to communicate with my guides, the first thing that happened was I started seeing white cranes everywhere. Like physically white cranes. And one time I was driving to James's house on the 405 freeway in the middle of downtown LA, and I had my sunroof open, and a white crane came and hovered over my car, over the sunroof. And it was to the level where I was kind of freaked out by it because it was huge. The wingspan was bigger than my car, and it just traveled with me up the freeway for a little while.
Wow.
And that, I think, that's level 1, is pay attention to the signs that are showing up and that's trying to communicate with you. And when you're open to that, just like having a conversation with a friend, if we're talking and you keep looking away, and yeah, that's fine, Jen, I'm going to go do something else, I'm not interested, then you might be inclined to stop communicating. But if I'm leaning in, I'm going, wow, this is amazing. Thank you. What else do you have to say? What else do I need to learn? Then we can move up a level, and a level above that might be the mystic realm. That's like, now we're talking about Harry Potter magic, like seeing energy or dragons or mystic. Like our little niece has a connection to unicorns. She just loves unicorn energy. And so the next level up for me was I started seeing the word dragon and seeing figures of dragon everywhere. And my Reiki master, when I first started studying Reiki, said, there's someone who walks in the room with a big dragon. And I went, what? That is so cool. Oh my gosh, I want a dragon. And then 2 years later, cut to 2 years of intense study of awakening my intuition. And I started seeing the word dragon, sensing dragons. It would be like, I'm driving on the freeway and then a truck with a dragon drives by. And finally I'm at a crystal store and I pick up this ornate carved jade piece that I have no idea what it is. And I said, I'll take this one. And the man says, oh, the dragon. And I call her and I say, do I have a dragon totem? Is the dragon part of my guidance? And she said, I've waited 2 years for you to tell me that you are the one with the dragon. Wow. And I told my mom, and then she tells me that as a kid, I would carry around this little white dragon. And when she told me that, it all came flooding back, that as a child, I was really open to that and I was connected to that. And then as an adult, I just went, oh, dragons aren't real, And then a tear up from that.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to stop you and ask you to elaborate just on that. For those people who maybe aren't familiar or aren't as woo as you and me.
Yes. Yet.
We will convert you all. Don't you worry.
Come to the woo waters, the water storm.
Come to the other side. It's fun over here. It's fucking hard, but it's also fun.
Yes.
Dragons and fairies and unicorns, a lot of people will be like, okay, yeah, but it's not real.
Right.
Can you just speak to that for a second so we have some clarity on what that means, having a dragon totem?
Yeah. I met this healer one time. He came to guest speak at my yoga teacher training, and he always recorded himself teaching so that he could repurpose it in his content, as we content creators do. And he called me, he asked the yoga studio for my phone number, and he sends me a text message and says, I'm doing this for about 10 years and never has someone wandered into the frame while I'm recording. And you're the back of your head kept wandering into the frame of the camera and then back out. And I've never seen that happen. So I reached out to the studio and I said, can you identify what student this is? I need to meet her. And when I met him, he and I just like when you and I met, we just start talking about energy and connection. And he's extremely skilled in Chinese medicine. And he started talking to me about, I said, well, I always connect with dragons. And I love that, in Chinese medicine and mythology, there's all these tigers and dragons. And I love that. And he was like, I really think that dragons are just on a different vibrational level. And that's kind of more accepted on the East, that the reason we can't see them is they're on this different frequency. So I look at it in two realms. For the more woo of us, we could say that they're vibrating at a different level, the same way that you can't hear the frequency of high-pitched noises, perhaps. there's a realm. And actually, if you watch the History Channel, they've got some cool documentaries on like, were dragons ever real? Because they show up in all these different culture folklores. But then for a more left brain thinker, like more logic, we could think like, well, what about just the energy of it, or the as a metaphor of like this mythical, powerful, winged, anything with wings in almost every ancient culture represents the middle ground between being a human and being source or God. And so what if there is this middle ground of, beings, but also creatures and that's how I like to think of it, as like, there's got to be the wings on a dragon just represent the animal kingdom that's in that middle plane, which is that next level of the next thing that started coming in for me was archangels. And I just in my mind started seeing these white wings, huge white wings. And then I realized I think I'm connecting to archangel energy. And my Jill, James's sister, and his mother, and my mother, the four of us are all convinced that we're from the same angelic like realm. And that and actually DX has said, he gives you little like tic-tac hints of like, well, Jill's very tuned in to this angelic realm. And
DX, for those listening who aren't sure, is the shaman that we work with. Just for
yes,
those who
so
sure
that's my archangel pendant. And that's, I think, that realm of guardian beings who are not human, but on a different dimension, that are here to guide, protect, and serve and pull us upward. And then if you go upward from that, you could say just like direct link to source, which, if you talk to people who meditate a lot or do yoga or have a deeply religious practice. In every religion in the world, there's this, they have a word for it. You might call it nirvana or, but it's that I've accessed God or source, and I think that you can allow your intuition to evolve upwards. And I always tell people, don't be shy to start on the ground floor. You start with the numbers on the clock, the 3D experience. And then as you keep leaning in, pay attention to the way that your body receives information. The way that I trained James was anytime he went, dang it, there was a part of me that knew that wasn't the right thing to do. With the mistakes, I go, okay, let's talk about that part of you. So where was that part of you? Was it a voice? Was it a feeling? Was it a sensation? James is tricky because he's claircognizant, which is the most difficult modality to link into. You and I being more clairvoyant, we get to go, oh, I had a dream and I had a vision and I saw an auric field. And he just thinks that's so cool. And that would be awesome. That would be the superpower to have. Claircognition is more, I don't know how I know, but I know. Yeah. And when you talk to people about, have you ever had an experience where you got a gut feeling or you met someone and you just felt linked to them or you met someone and you wanted to back away. You don't know what it was, but you just felt, I know, or you were forced to make a decision and it didn't make logical sense, but you knew what to choose. That's your guidance, your intuition. And I think that there's inner compass, which is being in alignment with myself. And that's where, muscle testing or being in integrity with yourself can come in, that your body is your subconscious mind. Your body knows what's in alignment with me. But then beyond that, we're connected and there's guidance waiting for you with the spirit realm, your ancestors, your spirit guides, the ascended masters, direct link to source, and that you can request guidance from whatever guide you feel comfortable connecting with. James loves animals. So he'll ask the animal kingdom to support him in decision-making. Like he went for a walk one day and said, I asked for 2 signs. And I think he's picked the animals even. He came back and was like, I saw a tarantula, which I have never seen living in Arizona for 2 years. I've never seen a tarantula cross my path. And he asked, I want a clear sign from an animal if this is the right path. Tarantula walks across his path on the road on his walk. And then he saw, I think, a coyote. And so coming back from the walk going, oh, I got confirmation. The animal showed up to, and I'll say, I want a message from the birds. I'm always connected to things with wings. So I pay attention when a bird flies by or when two birds fly by, then that's me going, oh, they want me to hear something. And so as you lean in wherever you're comfortable, and then, if you have someone like, I know you're connected to a particular Native American figure, if you go, oh, I want to hear from this person, then you have a picture of them or try to meditate and tune and ask for guidance and then receive with your whole body. Be open to, it can be a voice, it could be a picture, it could be a random thought, it could be a feeling. And pay attention to the moments where you make mistakes and you don't trust that, because those are actually the best teachers. Because when you trust your intuition, you don't get to find out what would have happened if you didn't. True. Sometimes I get random messages like, one day we were packing for a trip and I heard pack an extra toothbrush. And I thought, that's silly. I'm going to bring my regular toothbrush. And then as soon as we got to the hotel, I accidentally dropped my toothbrush on the hotel floor. And I thought, okay, well, I'm calling down to the front desk and asking for a new toothbrush. And that's why they said pack an extra toothbrush.
And that's why I should always listen.
Yes. But then if I just listen and I put two toothbrushes in the bag and James is unpacking going, are you nuts? Why'd you bring two? And I'm like, I don't know. And you don't get to find out really because you avoided that pitfall.
Here's the thing about stress and anxiety. Our bodies have not evolved to manage the level of stress we're faced with today, which means that we are constantly in fight or flight mode. And you'll feel this through anxiety and overwhelm, and also through your chronic health problems. Modern life breeds stress, which breeds dis-ease. But if we want to be well, we have to lessen that stress ourselves. Now, I've personally been reducing my stress and overwhelm for 9 months now, using the SENSATE. It's a small palm-sized device that sends infrasonic waves through the chest in order to activate the vagus nerve and calm the autonomic nervous system, which is the body's command center. You use it while playing the specially composed hemispheric audio within the app, and the majority of people report feeling calmer after only a short session. Everyone I lend it to ends up buying one because of how much calmer they instantly feel. Now, I'm particularly recommending the SENSATE to anyone who suffers from anxiety and wants help calming the nervous system, those who want to deepen their meditation practice, and people who are looking for ways to be calmer and more grounded. You can get £30 off the SENSATE by visiting getsensate.com and using code Lauren30. That's GETSENSATE.com, Lauren30. Thank you so much to SENSATE for partnering with Reconditioned. Now back to the episode. But you just have to, and this is, I love what you've said about pay attention. So like we went to, when we were selling our house and we were looking for a new home, we went to see this house, and this house was gorgeous, and it was like overlooking a field, and it was huge and within our budget, and like and had this huge garden. And the one thing that we wanted to upsize, and we wanted a big garden. We wanted space. And Daniel was like, this house, like all we would have to do is convert the garage and redo the kitchen. We wouldn't have to do anything else, just like a bit of decoration. And he called up the agent straight away and he put an offer in, and he put the phone down, and I went, that's not our house. And he went, what are you talking about? You loved it, everything. The garden was huge. I was like, I know. I don't know why I'm saying this, and I'm annoyed with myself. And but it's not our house. I don't know what it is. You have to trust me. It's not our house.
Yes.
And honestly, the series of events that took place, by the way, all guided by DX, after that happened towards us, the crazy, I mean, I'll tell you about it another time, but like crazy stuff about how we sold our house, the house that we found. We've now found this holistic school for our kids, which wouldn't have been anywhere near the other house. We wouldn't have been able to send them there. Like all these things that happen, I can't even tell you, like this whole series of events. The point is that I listened to my intuition. And there have been many times where I did not, like you say, and that's
You
how
know,
you learn, because you know how you, and I didn't get, the audience message
yeah, it
of
was just
don't buy this house.
knowing.
It was, I don't know, I can't explain it, but just please take that offer back, because that's not our house.
Yes.
But what I loved from everything you spoke about was about, for those people really here kind of looking to deepen their intuition. And it's one thing I say, on my academy to all my ladies, like, the one thing you have to be doing here is deepening and strengthening your connection to your intuition, because that will guide you on everything. And how do we do that? Show up, like, just pay attention to the signs, and those small signs you were recommending, like the feathers, the animal medicine, the small 3D signs, they could be anywhere. And it's funny, I think I told James about this. Like, I had my animal totems are dolphin and wolves. And obviously I live in London, right? I'm not anywhere where I see dolphins or wolves, which is good, right? Because it shouldn't have to be obvious. It can't be like, a cat. And I was having a really hard time. My first shamanic death since working with Don Javier. And I mean, I was deep in this shamanic death, and I was like, I could not function. And I was like, just please give me a sign. I need to see a dolphin, right? Just give me the sign of a dolphin. And that same day, I was picking up my daughter from nursery, and there's a car in front of me. And the cars, like the 4-wheel drives it's got like a big wheel on the back of the car. And on that wheel was a picture, like a sticker of a dolphin. And the next day, so that was the first one. And then the next day, my son, who only ever chooses to watch like cartoons and whatever, decided to put David Attenborough on, because he was 6 at the time, because he was learning about David Attenborough at school, and he put this on Netflix. And I'm upstairs and I'm just doing my own thing. I can't remember what I was doing. And he went, "Mommy, dolphins." And I was like, okay.
I love that, because people get into their 3D thinking and think, I can't ask for animal guidance. There aren't any animals in this city.
So that's exactly my point of saying that. Like, if you look for it and you accept it as a sign, you accept it as guidance and as support.
Where am I going to see a dragon? And what was so funny was that it was happening me and my mom. My mom had gone she always goes to these health conferences. She's like me and you and my mom would just adore each other. She's basically become her own naturopath, and she's always at a health expo or conference. And she saw this pendant that was written in Chinese calligraphy, and she went, "Jennifer needs that." And she bought it. She can't read Chinese. And then when she checked out, they said, "This says dragon."
Oh my God.
And she was like, "What?" So I was telling her about this, and she's telling me, and we were like, wow, that's phenomenal. I love that you bring up the house, because we had the same experience with our house in Sedona. James actually put an offer in on a different house, and that's not our house. And he had asked me, he had been looking for a long time. And he had asked me, when am I going to find my house? And so I meditated and I said, okay, it's going to come in the market. I think it comes in the market. And I'll talk this out loud just in case people are wondering, how do you receive intuitive guidance? And then what do you do with it? So I'm closing my eyes and I'm looking, and I'm seeing a calendar, and I'm seeing dates pop up. Like I'm seeing like April 11th, April 18th. And then I see in bolder May 23rd to 28th, kind of like it's highlighted on a calendar. And then I said, after that, I don't see any dates. What I think that means is there's going to be houses popping up. There'll be one in March, there'll be one in April, there'll be one on the 18th. But what's interesting is I don't see any dates after May. So what I think they're showing me is that the house we get is in May, because then those are the other dates that you're looking at houses, and then it just stops. And it's on a street with animal names. Are there any streets in Sedona where there's lots of animal names? And James is like, yes, there's a whole neighborhood where every street is named after an animal. Like there's all of these, like Hummingbird Lane and Red Hawk Lane and Coyote Lane or whatever. And I'm going, okay, so it's named after an animal. And the reason you haven't seen it yet is because whoever is in it now they haven't decided they want to leave yet. So this is the part of like intuition is we're all connected to each other, right? If you think about buying a house, you buying the house was contingent on another family or another person deciding I'm going to live in a different space. So there's a letting go to let that in. And this particular couple hadn't let it go yet. And finally, this house comes in the market and it's on an animal street name. And it comes on the market on May 23rd. Oh. And we go and look at it. And I had written a list down of the dream house, and everything on the list is just ticked off. Even like, I want to live to where I can just walk out the backyard onto a hiking trail. And James is speaking to the owners, and they said, we built this house and we're the only people that have ever lived here. And we just couldn't decide if we were going to put it on the market or not. And then we decided. And the minute they did, he came and looked. And so that's like, leaning into what's the guidance that I'm receiving and how do I navigate that? Part of receiving intuition is you've got to interpret the signs because it's speaking in code. And I think that one of the things when I'm encouraging people to dial it up or to lean into it or to study it is that you've got to be present to what for you is a distraction that pulls focus, that doesn't allow you to be present enough to notice that something's tapping you on the shoulder. Because
so what are examples of those?
Okay, like in our modern society, there's music playing everywhere. There's not a lot of silence. And when you work when you work with a shaman, he highlights silence, silence, silence. I will answer you in the silence, that you have to get quiet, both physically and mentally. And that's where I think yoga really supports intuition, because you are training your mind and your body to hold still, even if it's uncomfortable, even if something else is happening, even if you're dripping sweat or the pose feels painful. You're training, I'm just going to be still right now. And I think that comes back into, there's so many quotes biblically that highlight this too, be still and know that I am God. There's something that's a connection to, if you want to connect to source, you need to be still and silent. And so learning to quiet the mind, that could be learning to dial back your anxiety or learning to identify what's an anxious thought. For me, anxious thoughts come in the right ear, guidance comes in the left ear. So I've begun to tune to like, where am I receiving that? I think that the elements can support you. I used to have trouble holding still. And so I forced myself into a 10-day silent retreat where the challenge was not silence, it was the stillness, because you hold still in Vipassana. When you're at one of those retreats, there's 3 times a day that are sittings of extreme discipline where you pick your meditative pose and then you don't move for 1 hour. And it doesn't matter if your back hurts or a mosquito is biting you or you have an itch. You learn that there's just these sensations and thoughts arising and moving in the mind and the body all the time, and you don't have to respond to them. And that level of, I can train myself to hold still. I think we humans today, we need a practice where we're practicing that. We're in the gym lifting the weights of, I can hold still in my mind and my body. And then also paying attention to how much chatter's going on. Are you immersed in an environment where you always have the TV on, or you always have music playing? Do you allow yourself to go into nature or be still and silent? And then the food that we eat too, I'm sure you talk about this a lot, that there's vibration to food. If you're putting things in your body that are either low vibration or even just distracting you by, now I have a stomach ache, or now I don't feel well. Now I'm paying attention to my ankles feel swollen and I can't pay attention to whatever else my body's trying to tell you, which is so important for clairsentience. Because if you're clairsentient, then you're using the body to feel. And one of the things I did when I started dialing up my intuition was I started being very, very careful of my diet. And I would receive like, what do I need to eat? And the first time I met DX, Lauren, I sit down and we're having dinner, and he goes,
"He doesn't want to have dinner with him."
Oh, well, yes, come to Sedona. And he goes, there was a time, he did not know this about me. This is the first time I'm meeting this man in the 3D. I was dreaming about him. I had met him in a dream time. I had met him in meditation, and he sounded exactly the way that I saw in my mind. But we're sitting down to dinner, and he goes, there was a time when you were learning to develop your perception. He calls it, he distinguishes between intuition and perception. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what does that mean? But he said there was a time when you were developing your perception and you felt it was necessary to not eat meat. And that was correct at that time. But now you've honed your skills and you've moved on from that. And when he said that, I was like, wow, yes, I was a vegetarian for 6 years because there was this moment where I remember exactly where I was sitting, what I was eating. I was having some Whole Foods tuna fish. And all of a sudden I saw the eyes of the tuna, the pack of tuna swimming by me, and the panic in their eyes of being caught. And I saw that and I threw the tuna in the trash. And from that moment onward, anytime I would sit down to eat meat, I would see the eyes of the animal looking at me. And if you've ever gazed into the eyes of a fearful animal, how could you take a bite after seeing that? So I eliminated meat, and I refused to eat meat around my psychic readings. And then I refused to drink alcohol because I needed my vibration to be strong and high in order to tune in. And now I don't do energy readings for others. I just teach people how to unlock their own intuition, which I think is a much more useful tool. Because listen, folks, if you're going out there and getting a psychic reading, and this is coming from someone who used to give them, you are relying on someone else to interpret the signs and signals that they're receiving and then tell you what that means for you. And only you have the context. There's a African proverb that says, every man that dies is a library that burns. Mm-hmm. And that is, you have so many stories, not only in this lifetime, but in past lifetimes, in your ancestral blood history, that, interpreting the signals that the universe is trying to get you. Get your own direct telephone line. Don't be borrowing a stranger's cell phone. Let's just get you a program here.
And also, I know you talk about this a lot, and it's, it's something maybe you can speak to briefly, that when you give advice, like you're channeling a message and it's for someone, how do you know when to give that or when to hold it back? And like some psychics will give information that maybe will take someone in a direction that maybe they weren't meant to go on, or we'll have free will, so which route we're going to choose. And I think the issue with going for psychic readings is like, it's because we want confirmation, right? It's because we want support, and we want confirmation that things are going to be okay, and the people we love who are no longer with us physically are there watching over us. We want confirmation of that. But like you say, isn't it way more empowering to be able to know how to tune into that yourself? So like how, but just from someone who is deeply psychic, how do you know when to shut up? Like if you get some sort of message through.
I definitely share less now than but even I'll tune in body wise. I can always feel like a pressure on my heart if it's a no, you know, and sometimes, and then I feel like a pressure on my back if it's a yes. It's like they're pushing me forward, like you need to say that. And I'm very selective now. I think DX has really, or I know that DX has really supported me in understanding what my gifts are and then how to use those gifts. And one of the things that for me, this is for me, everyone listening, I no longer will give psychic readings because of the energy it takes me to go into someone else's auric field. And sometimes I absorb or I take on whatever's going on for them, and then I'm affected afterwards. But also because my brain, I've got my own stuff, you know, I've got my own mental cerebral cortex that I'm filtering things through that brain. And sometimes I run the risk of twisting something in the wrong way and then providing someone what I thought was well-intended guidance, but it was actually a little bit off, you know? Right. And so I think if you are seeking out psychic readings, you know, I used to sit at the feet of my Reiki master and just be like, can you tell me more? Can you tell me my past life? And she was like, not important, or you'll remember. And
Right.
I love that she answered that way, because she would throw out these tic-tac comments sometimes where I'd say, you know, what's so funny is I can watch French movies and I understand, but I do not speak French. I don't have French lessons, but I just, when I hear French, and my mom's the same way. When she was a little girl, she saw a pillow and said, "Oh, look, Mom, it says Noel." And my grandmother said, "What? How are you reading that? That's in French." And my mom said she did a double take. And that as soon as my grandmother said that, she looked at the pillow and she saw that it was French, and they looked up the definition of it, and it said Noel in French. But my mother didn't speak French. And so she and I both believe we had this past life in France where I'm connected to that somehow, even though in this lifetime, in this 3D reality, it's like, that makes no sense. Yeah. But, I think if you're seeking out readings, then you're coming to that with a presupposition. This person has a gift that I don't have. This person can see more than I can see. And one of the things that DX says to me regularly is, what I can do, you can do. You need to tune in. You need to, and that's fair to say. If you think about the scope of human experience, that we're all just humans having an experience.
Right.
And there are people who condition themselves. Let's take like a pro athlete, like a triathlete, an Ironman, for example. They've trained, they've conditioned. There was a starting point where they began to learn. And then I think her name is Siri Lindley. She's an amazing athlete that went from, zero to hero, like finishing last in every race to winning the gold medal in triathlons. And so that's how I think of intuition. You can do the same thing. If you can produce that in a triathlete, then you can certainly become the Olympic gold medal winner in your own intuitive connection. And if we are truly all coming from the same place, we're all connected to source, wouldn't it make sense that we could find our way back there, that we could tune back in ourselves, that we don't actually need someone else to do that for us? We need to learn how to do it for ourselves, to remember who we are and remember who we're guided by.
And also that we don't have to give out all those messages to prove ourselves, even if we're getting them.
That's so good. And that was a hard pill to swallow. Was one time DX said, you don't need to show off your gift. You don't need, and when he said that, I went like, I don't think I'm showing off. And then I realized I was showing off to myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to prove to myself, I've still got it.
Right. It's so true.
As soon as I tell you, as soon as I start describing to you your dead uncle that you haven't seen in 15 years, that was like a father figure to you and died in 1995, and I could physically describe him and tell you everything, then I walk away from that call going, I have access. I believe that I am clairvoyant. Right. And I don't need to do that to just believe in your own ability, and then that will strengthen it.
Yeah. Like I often get things of like, not so much, dead uncles or stuff like, although I have, but I've had things like, as an example, I knew that a friend's husband had cheated on her. I just knew. Yeah. And this came out years later, and I knew I couldn't say anything. Right. Yes. And I have experiences like that a lot. And that's where it's very clairsentient, and it's not necessarily me being told something or seeing something in a vision. It's just like, oh, fuck. Like I feel deep in my being that something has happened, and I know that that's happened right now.
Yeah. So, I've had 2 experiences where someone cheated on me. And I received it psychically one time.
Oh, wow.
I received it in a dream. And I went to him and I said, I had this dream. And the dream was I went into his room and there was a woman's sweater hanging on the bed. And that was the dream. And that was the symbol of he's been with someone else and didn't tell you. And then I had another one where he came to me in a dream, and it was pouring rain. So rain's a motion, and he was crying. And I said, you have something to tell me. And he couldn't speak. And I thought, I think you're not being real with me when you say that we're exclusive. And when I confronted him, he said, no, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, why don't you give me permission to read you? And he said, okay, I'll give you permission. He was looking away. And I went, no, you have to look me in the eyes and give me permission. And this is a thing in energy healing. If you're going to work on someone's energy in Reiki, you ask permission, and they've got to either psychically turn and face you, or look you in the eyes and say, yes, I give you permission. And finally, after 3 times, no, you're not looking at me. You got to give me permission. He looks me in the eyes and goes, okay, I give you permission. And I close my eyes and I start walking him through. He had told me we were exclusive, and this is like 3 weeks into being exclusive. So I'm walking him through everyone that I think he's been with that he didn't tell me. And there were 4. And when I opened
in 3 weeks, he's a busy guy.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I could have gotten the time. Maybe the timeline was off, but yeah, I saw 4 and I was describing the color of the hair and what he was feeling and who they were and what context they had and what had happened. He was going through a lot at the time in his own family. So I actually wasn't hurt by it. It was just like, let's be real. We're breaking up in this moment. But I opened my eyes and there's tears streaming down his face. And I said, on a scale of 1 to 100, how accurate was that? And he said, I think you got one of the hair colors wrong. I think she was brunette, not blonde. And I was like, well, maybe not naturally.
Now, 2 things.
When you're tuning to that, it's like actually hard to be upset at circumstances like that happening, because you just go like, oh, I'm just being guided in this moment to see this so that I can make a little left turn here.
Yeah. And so a couple of things that you've said there really resonated, and this is what people need to look out for because we're going off on tangents here, but we are still giving lots of tools and tangible ways to develop this. But buckle up, people, listen carefully. You got to read between the lines here. But you said the sweater was a symbol, right? Having another woman's sweater was a symbol, and rain was a symbol of emotion. So we're looking for symbols all the time. So my mum and I used to go to a spiritualist circle, and the medium there would help us tune into what are symbols and our signs. So like if I saw a rose, it meant a birthday. If I saw someone knitting, it meant there was a baby coming. Like, stuff like that. There were lots of symbols. So that's what we want to look out for. Like, what are the signs? So we've spoken about animal totems. We've spoken about things like feathers. It could be anything for you. It might not be a feather. Like, open up to what it could be, a specific flower, anything at all, the shape of a cloud, like, absolutely anything.
Yeah, and what it means to you too. James and I don't look at clouds, and I actually have this photo. I'll have to send it to you because this was, I texted it to DX and Mandy as soon as I saw it. We took a photo of me in a boat we had rented boats in Austin, Texas. And it was one of those days where there's not big fluffy clouds in the sky. There's kind of that paintbrush wisp of white in the sky. And there's a cloud that I did a double take and went, that's a dragon.
Oh my God. I knew you were going to say this because I'm going to send you later a picture that I took in the sky, because a healer that I was working with was like, let me know when you see the dragon. I was out with Daniel and I look up at the sky and I was like, what shape's that cloud? And we both look at it and he went, a dragon. I was like, oh my God, I've got to send that to Sean. I'm going to send you that picture.
Chills all over. Chills, my clairsentience. That is a clue that you're perceived. I get chills when I say someone says something that's true. Yeah. And that's my body goes, yeah, that's true. And then I start getting chills. And the more truth it is, the more like rolling chills I get. Sometimes I won't stop for like minutes on end. And I think that knowing that the universe communicates in signs and signals, think of it like, when if you have a pet, my dog owners, if you love a dog, that you can communicate with that dog in a lot of ways, but think of that. They've never spoken English to you. They've only communicated with nonverbal or little yelps, yips, and barks. And the amount of communication, I was telling James, I wish I would have had a camera on last night because my boy dog is not the alpha. He is the beta to our small female dog's alpha. And last night she had a bone. And Bruce came to me and does this. There's an injustice has occurred. He does this. It's like it's a very specific bark. And that means something's not fair, Mom. And I look at him and I'm like, what is it? And I look over at Indy and she's just laying down on the floor. And I go, do you have a bone? And I go and she's laying under a bone. And I go to take the bone and she just places her little paw over the bone. Like, I don't think so. I would like to keep this bone. And then I look at Bruce and he goes, like, that it's not fair. She has one and I don't, is what he was saying. So I go in and get a bone out of his bed and I said, do you want this bone? And he sniffs it and he puts it in his mouth like, I guess. And then as soon as I give that bone, Indy gets up and says, I'll take that bone. He can have this one. So I give that to her and then he gets the bone and they both sit down in their beds and start chewing their bones. And I went, I wish I would have recorded that, because that's like how you have to communicate with the universe, is you get this tiny little nudge, or like a song comes on the radio and you're like, oh, should I pay attention? I get a ringing in my left ear. If I'm meant to listen to something, it'll just be like a short burst of tinnitus, just like, meow, and then it'll go away. And then I'm listening, like, what are you trying to tell me? And we do that with our animals all the time. We believe that they're communicating with us without words. We're just watching. And then people don't do that in their life. You've got to go out and watch nature, watch your environment, watch your body, watch your thoughts in your mind, and see if something's trying to talk to you. You're just listening in a different way. You're wanting that, like,
you're listening in the 3D human
from the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I deeply believe that if that's what you need, the universe will give that to you. But then there's going to come a time when it's time to listen more, like, okay, I'll keep sending, tapping on your 3D, but then at some point I'm going to require you to look inward, and listen with the inner voice.
Absolutely. Can we go into the clairs quickly? Because it'd be really good for people to know what's what. And just before we do that, very quickly, you were saying about the ringing in your ears, something that DX has guided me to see. I've had that for my whole life, right? I will get that short burst of like a ringing.
Yes.
I just thought everyone got that. And actually, what he's guided me to see is that this is also communication from other life forces.
Yeah.
So now when it happens, I used to be like, oh, go away. What is it? And now I'm like, whatever I'm doing, I stop and I close my eyes. I'm like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What do I need to hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the clairs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Clairs. So we've got, clairvoyant. That's probably the most common, or everyone's heard of that. That's being able to see. Now, the base level clairvoyance, again, would be numbers on a clock, seeing animals in the 3D, finding feathers on your path. It could be having really vivid dreams. Now, upper level clairvoyant would be like your mom, being able to physically see auric fields, colors, or white smoke around people. Which has happened to me just a few times. And I was like, whoa, I think I tripped out and scared myself, and then kind of turned the volume down on that.
Which you can do. You can actually say,
yes. Yeah, you must react with love and acceptance versus fear and avoidance to turn the volume up.
Like when I had my very, very profound experience, I was 20. And I mean, I'd had experiences my whole life, but I was 20 when I had this hugely profound experience. And I guess the medium and the spiritualist circle was like, you are literally being taken out of your body, and the spirits are coming to you all the time. Like I was, that scene in Ghost where Whoopi Goldberg has all the ghosts around her, and they're all talking, and they're like da 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 da, because she's just turned it on, and she was faking before that. That was what it was like. It was I'd be lying down at night, and I put the pillow over my head, and I'd be like, please stop, please stop. I thought I was going mad, and she said, you're not going mad, but you've opened up the channels for it. And so it's all coming to you now. And I wasn't ready for it. So I had to switch it off. And I've had to switch it back on very incrementally at my own...
At your level
at my pace, and with my permission when I want to receive it and when I don't. So just,
spiritual boundaries.
To say that. Spiritual boundaries, Yeah,
people, I actually just got a DM recently about I really want to become more psychically tuned in, but I'm afraid I'm going to open up something dark. And my response was, let's replace the word fear with a valid concern, because there is a possibility that you can tune to the dark side. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I really believe the Force is on a spectrum, guys. There's the dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force, and you want to work in the light. And DX will say that I work in the light. I work with the benevolent ones. Mm-hmm. That implies there are some dark ones,
and you can make that choice.
Yeah, but I think vampire movies are really true. You got to invite the vampire in. You have to say yes in some way, even if you're not intending to let darken. Like I won't even say the word, but I won't play with a particular toy board that allows spirits to come in. I won't even say the word, won't touch it, won't come near it. If I see the word written or I see it in a store, I walk the other way.
My mum said that to
Another
me.
thing,
She was like, don't ever go near those. Just promise me, you'll never do it. You'll never experiment with it.
Right. Because that's an open door where anything can come through. Could be light, could be dark. That I just got chills. And then the other thing and this is probably going to be controversial for some people listening, but I won't touch tarot. I won't touch anything that says tarot on it because we don't know the source of the tarot deck. It emerged in history at a moment in time. And actually DX confirmed for me one night of like, it's unknown mystery of where it came from. Did it come from the light? Did it come from the dark? There's cards that reside in both worlds. So I don't play in that deck because I know that there's light and dark in that deck. And I'm not sure how strong my capacity is to say no dark. You know, I know cognitively what level I'm on, but when you pick up a toy that has some dark in it, then you should be aware that maybe you don't have the personal power to don't play with anything that's controversially maybe on the dark side. Okay. So then we've got clairaudience, which is psychic hearing. If you experience ringing in your ears, if you hear the same song on the radio, if you hear in 3D someone repeating to you over and over, like, wow, you're the third person to ask me that, that's audience. The deeper psychic level would be like actually perceiving it. For me, it sounds like it's almost like a thought, or like if in this moment, if you just say something to yourself in your own head, and in a way you've heard that, but it's not in a 3D hearing. It's like that. Clairsentient is being able to perceive and feel with your body. So rolling chills, the hair on your back of your neck, standing up, getting a gut feeling butterflies in your stomach. Sometimes a heightened level of that would be physically being able to feel pain for others. Like, you know, I'm a identical twin. So sometimes I can feel emotions that my twin sister is having on the other side of the country. And I've talked to a lot of twins where they felt the physical pain of their brother, like their brother injured their knee and all of a sudden their knee hurt. That's a level of clairsentient. Claircognizant is you don't know how you know, but you know. That's challenging because you don't have anything to point to. You can't go, oh, my arm hurts. That must be someone in my life is hurting. Does your arm hurt right now? Jill did a Reiki healing on someone that had a broken arm and came home with just a tremendous bone pain in her arm. And that was our cue of you need better spiritual boundaries. You got to be able to separate. That's your energy. This is my energy. And as my Reiki master said, when that happens, you just like if you saw someone drop their keys on the floor, you'd pick up their keys and say, these are your keys. I give this back with peace and love. And it's not with any judgment. It's not, ew, yuck, take your bad vibes back with you. It's just here, I give this back from where it came from. This energy doesn't belong to me. I give it back with peace and love. And then you move on. And then there's some fun ones like clair olfactory and clair gustatory, which is taste and smell. Those are more rare. I do know someone who says they can smell cancer, that it smells like rotten garbage.
I am all olfactory. That is me down to a T.
Wow.
And I don't think I've spoken to you about this before, but like this has been something that, you know, like when you experience things as a kid and then you just think like either you're weird or everyone must feel like this. Everyone must have this experience, or like from such a young age, I remember like I spent obviously a lot of time in hospitals. My sense of smell is so strong, so much stronger than the average human, that bad smells, what I perceive as bad smells, would literally hit me in a way that I can't cope. And I think that now understanding that it was that strong in order to connect, to show me like to connect me to that sense, one of those human senses, which gives me a connection, deeper connection to the other senses. I will literally, I know this sounds, all right, we're not going to use the word weird, right? But like might sound a bit strange to people. Before I meet someone, or if I can see someone, I know what they smell like. But you know, everyone has their own smell, right?
Wow. Yes.
And it's not just like people go, I see dead people. I smell dead people. Like I know which which spirit is around just by the smell. And everything for me is connected back to smell. It is the biggest thing in my life. I cannot tell you, like everything has a smell to me. Everything.
You know, my I learned that while I was studying Reiki, because my Reiki master's mother, she would smell flowers like lavender, roses. I just got chills. And my grandmother had a very particular discontinued Estee Lauder perfume that she always wore. Her whole house smelled like it. And it's kind of this cinnamony clove smell. And after she passed, I would smell her when she was around me. And after she passed, I would wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Hi, Grandma." And then I'd go back to sleep. And I would see her standing at the foot of my bed, but she was younger. She was about 40 years old. And then in that half dream spake, it was just so normal, like, oh, and then I'd wake up and go, "Whoa, wait a minute. Did I wake up in the middle of the night and say hello to my dead grandmother, but she was 40 years old?" And that's what I think people who are just tuning to your psychic intuition, be graceful with your 3D self when your 3D self goes, right, "I don't know if that really happened." That's okay. But then also have this other side of you that goes, "I think that really happened." And you don't have to have it validated by others. You don't have to check in with someone else and go, "I had this dream. Do you think that's real? I saw this animal. Do you think that means something?"
So true. Yeah.
Just lean into, do I know that that's true? Because intuition is a process, and trusting yourself and your unique conversation with the universe.
Totally. And like with I think that's why I brought up the Claire olfactory thing, because for me, my whole life, everything was about what I could smell. And I just thought that was weird. Like I would, ask other people, like, "Can you smell this?" Or like, "Does this smell bad to you?" Or like, I can't even explain. It's it goes so deep. But I now know that is my way of connecting. That has been that's my gift. That's my way of connecting to the spirit world somehow through one 3D, human sense. And for everyone, and like I said, I had the earring, I have the different things. I have dreams and all of that. But that's definitely my primary one, I would say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I hope someone out there listening also has.
I know, because I just thought I was so weird for so long. And I was like, why does
it's such a funny one.
Smell to me?
Does anyone else smell roses? Can you smell that?
Right. Right.
Yes,
or like,
I love that.
Yeah. So much. Jen, do you ever get like, because sometimes I just think about all of this and I go, whoa, it's got so deep. What if none of it's real? Do you ever think that?
I think I've had so many. I'll tell a story that I don't think I've told on any podcast before. I've had so many experiences, and James has been my best partner for this because we've known each other since we were 20. And James used to be very, very, very logical and he was like, he's as curious as you can get. So even if he doesn't really believe in it, he's curious. Like, I don't know, prove me wrong. That's just his attitude on everything. I think it, but I could be wrong. And, when I started studying this, he would test me, like, "Let's test your psychic ability." One day he called me and he's like, "Okay, he used to collect moped bikes. I'm looking at motorbikes. Tell me what color I'm looking at." "I think you're looking at red and white." "Oh my gosh, that's the color." I went 6 for 6. And at one point I said, "You're moving really fast. Are you scrolling?" It's a blur. And he's like, "I was scrolling." He hung up the phone on me because I was seeing what he was looking at. That's that clairvoyance.
Wow.
And then I gave a healing to his dad at one point when he was still with us. This was years ago, probably 2008. And he was going to have back surgery. And James's mother, who's just an earth angel, was like, I know that he's not really into all this energy stuff, but I love your Reiki healings. And I just think maybe it would lower his pain level. Could you give him a healing? And I said, of course. So I'm working on him. And as I get to his knee in Reiki, you hold your hands over the joints of the body and you're moving energy. As I get to his knee, this movie starts playing in my mind, and it's like a scene from Platoon, and it's the Vietnam, the jungle in Vietnam, and bullets whizzing by, and I'm getting chills just thinking about this. I see 2 young men, one's taller than the other, and James's dad was 6 foot, and they're running, and I feel this bullet go into the knee, and then into the shin or around, like below the shin bone, kind of below the knee, not into the knee. And then I feel in my body this guilt come. I'm just getting rolling chills right now. So after the healing, I didn't have the guts to ask Bill about it. So I go into James's room and I say, "James, was your dad in the Vietnam War?" And he said, yes. And I didn't know that. I knew he was in the Navy, but I didn't associate, Vietnam jungle with Navy. I thought he was on a boat. So then I said, okay, was he injured in the war? And he said, yes. And I said, was he shot between the knee and the ankle, like around his shin bone? And at that point, James goes, Dad, get in here. And Bill comes to the doorway and he goes, just tell him what you told me. And I was like, okay, sir, I was healing you. And I'm like this timid little voice, because I'm afraid he's going to be like, this is nuts. You get out of my house. And I said, I was healing you. And I saw these two men in fatigues, and they're running through the jungle, and there's bullets whizzing by, and one of them gets shot in the leg between the knee and the ankle. And then I felt all of this guilt rush up, and he goes, that was me, baby. and he said, I don't talk about this, but I was injured, and the friend that I was running with was fatally wounded. And I felt guilty my whole life that he died and I didn't. And in that moment, I just got chills. James and I looked at each other and I went, I have a gift. And I have so many stories. I could talk all day about these stories where when you have an experience like that, where there is no possible way that I could have had access to that information, because James didn't even know that. He never spoke about that. Then that's that irrefutable, there's something here. And I teach it because I always say I came in very gifted, but I learned how to turn it up. Right. And I learned how to turn it up by learning to turn down everything else that was blocking it out, like by adjusting my diet, by learning to meditate, by learning to be still, by taking on yoga, by reading books, by learning from other people who have a higher capacity for this than I am, by spending time with people who have a heightened level of psychic amplitude. James and I joke that I'm an amplifier. So if we meditate together and I say, do you want to see? Then I can hold his hand and he can access clairvoyance. And what's so interesting is as I guide him through that, there's so much doubt that arises where he's going, I don't think I'm getting a picture. And I go, okay, in your mind's eye. And I want you to look as if you're in a room and there's a small television that's been left on in the background. Is there any image? It doesn't matter. All it is, what is it? And then I see something and I'm like, okay, bring it closer. And as he starts to lean into it, then he can go on this whole vision quest. And I think that that's really what intuition is for some of us, is it's a TV or a radio that's been left on in the background that we completely forgot about. And if you get quiet enough and you tune enough, then you can start to hone in on it. And then you can't not pay attention to it. It's like a dripping faucet. You go, wow, how did I not hear that before? But you train yourself in diffuse awareness, being able to be in this 3D body, but also be perceiving in this other realm. And women are particularly good about that because, our brains are organized for that, for diffuse awareness. Because in hunter-gatherer times, we had to be the ones that went into the field and said, no, not that berry, this berry. That berry is poisonous. This berry isn't. And men had to be the hunters. So you can't have diffuse awareness while you're hunting a deer. You would not kill the deer. You have to have that single pointed one track mind focus. So
and we've evolved to still be like that. Like essentially,
right.
Biologically, physiologically, our brains are actually still like that. We haven't evolved enough. Yes, we've developed the neocortex and all of that, but our brains haven't developed out of that, which is why the feminine is the intuition and the masculine is more of the logic. And when you can balance that out, both within you as a woman, you as a man, and also within, a partnership, if you're in partnership, that's magical. And just to kind of go to anyone who's listening, who's like, yeah, but I don't have that level of psychic power that Jen does. And that's also okay. And
and
you
didn't always,
by the way.
And I will say, there's people that I have said in the reading, I think you're putting a wall up because I can't read you. And then that person burst into tears and said, it's because my daughter organized this for me. I don't believe in psychic ability. And so you're coming up against my doubt. And I said, okay, I just want you to suspend that for a few moments and see if you can imagine taking down a lead wall and just let me in. And then I was able to read them. So if you aren't able to tune in, it could be two things. Like there's your perception, and then there's what other people are allowing for. And belief is essential. You have to say, yes, I lean into this. I believe I could do this. And then that's like the beginning of any goal, right? You have to have the thought of what you want, and there has to be some level of believability. And I think I could have it, because if you didn't think you could have it, you wouldn't even try. Like I'm not out there practicing basketball because I don't think I could become an NBA all-star. So I'm not even taking any actions. But people, if they think that you can just, that you're either born with it or not, and I don't think so. I think it's all on a spectrum. I think you condition it, you learn it, you grow it. And that when you believe in it and you believe that you can become it, that's when you can really amplify your own intuition.
Absolutely. And I think that there is the tool. So when I was going to say, okay, so like what practices can we use to really tune in and see what Claire we're working with primarily, I think you've just kind of hit the nail on the head there, because it's all about awareness, right? It's bringing ourselves back to just be aware of all these things that you weren't aware of before.
And I think there's two elements. Like, you want to believe this is real. So I think reading books, like I have a book on angels that I read that I just loved, that made it, there were so many, it was just stories of people having experiences with what could be angels. And you read 100 stories like this and you start to go, maybe this is real. So reading things that are other people's stories of these interactions with things that are beyond the physical body, that will increase your believability. And then I can't stress yoga enough. I don't even care if that's not your main workout, or just get into yoga, because yoga trains you in diffuse awareness. You have to be paying attention to your muscles, your bones, and your breath, and your thinking once you get to an advanced level. My Reiki teacher used to say, I can tell an advanced yogi with my eyes closed because I'm listening to the breath. And an advanced yogi will be in a rigorous physical practice, but the breath is steady and it sounds like they're holding still. And that's the gift of yoga, is it's teaching you how to do two things at once. So I think yoga is an incredible tool for becoming intuitive.
Oh, Jen, I could speak to you all day.
I know
that you've
got 5 more hours, because we can just keep going.
That's all we need. 5 hours. That's cool. Yes. We're going to do it in London, and we're going to do it in Sedona. So that's a manifestation put out to the universe now. But I am going to end with all about you, because I love my rapid fire rounds.
Yes, I love these. Yes.
Great. Okay, so the first one's always the same. Wellness is.
I was hoping you were going to ask this, because I was tuning to that this morning, and I kid you not, Lauren, as I tuned to my answer, I was also listening to an episode of James on the podcast, and he said what I was thinking in my mind out loud, which is wellness is the alignment of your spirit, your soul, and source. And James defines alignment of being in sync with your soul.
You guys are just lobsters. He's your lobster.
Yes.
I can't even deal with how cute it is. Okay, because we're friends, I'm like just going to have a bit of fun here as well, and they're not going to be all super serious. We'll get to the fun ones. But firstly, what's your most valuable failure?
My most valuable failure. I think the first thing that comes to mind is my career at Lululemon. I succeeded in so many ways. I went after so many roles, and I got dream roles, like being an internal leadership coach for Lululemon was a dream role of mine that I wanted for so long, and I got it. And I was on the regional training team, and that was wonderful. But I was in a contract role of a role that I really, really, really wanted. And there were probably 5 other roles that I really, really, really wanted. And I failed to receive those roles. I kept going for interviews and then not getting it. And then James walks into my office one day. I had applied for 12 roles, and I kept being told, we want you in this department. Just hang tight. We're going to find your role. Don't leave us. And James said, what if you came to work for me? And I just started crying and was like, that would be a dream come true. I would love that. And what I do now is the exact realization of what I wanted. And he says something on his podcast quite frequently, and in one of the most recent episodes, where he says, when you're out of alignment with what your soul's meant to be doing, don't you think the universe might be putting some obstacles in your path? Like maybe you won't fail. Well, maybe you won't succeed at that because you're not meant to. Because if you succeeded wildly at that, you wouldn't be available to go and succeed at what you're really meant to. So my most valuable failure in the last few years has been the positions I thought I really wanted with all my heart that I went for and I didn't get, that made me available to accept the position that really is the fulfillment of all of my dreams and strengths, where I get to share my gifts. And that's my role on Team Wedmore.
I love that. And I think everyone has experiences like that if we really look at it, where we felt. There's a great podcast here in the UK. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called How to Fail. And she interviews like celebrities and, well-known people.
Oh, I love that.
And she asks them for their top 3 failures and they go into that. It's really
That's amazing.
One thing you always procrastinate on.
One thing I always, putting gas in my car. I rewarded myself yesterday because I took my car to get washed and I had it like detailed. And I came home and I was like, I just have to pat myself on the back because washing my car and filling my car up with gas are 2 adult activities that I just put off to the last minute. And when I do it, I'm like, yes, I feel accomplished. I'm proud of myself. That's a silly
I agree.
one.
That's such boring, annoying things. Who would play you in a film of your life?
Oh, who would I love to play me? Well, if we're doing celebrity lookalikes, the lookalike I get all the time, which I authentically do not see, but James agrees with them, so there must be something to it, is Jennifer Carpenter, the sister from Dexter. I was getting coffee the other day and said, they people. I've actually been asked to sign an autograph for her. Like that's how much other people think I look like her. I don't see it at all, but I think that's because I look at my own face every day. Let's see. I just adore Lily Collins. I think she is so light and effervescent.
She's great,
and Paris is my favorite show. So if we could see an Emily in Paris where she's also a psychic intuitive, I would.
I am there for that.
Greatest honor.
I am there for that. Okay, if you could raid the brain of one person and retain all the information, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
Either.
Okay, if I could raid the brain, this is a cheesy answer, but Albert Einstein would be dead. I find that he was my father's favorite scientist because he was so deeply connected spiritually and one of the most brilliant minds. I just found out that his wife disclosed after his death that his favorite book was Isis Unveiled, which is a very metaphysical, woo-woo spiritual book about ancient Egypt. So I would just love to know what that man knew. And also I would say alive, other than our shaman, obviously, would be incredibly fascinating because he has the most incredible life experience and stories. I mean,
but also some of the stuff he knows is like, it can't be really fully
came
by
in like
human
that.
minds.
Right. Yes. And yes, absolutely.
Some of the lessons are
you're
like, what?
And then I would say probably I would love to be inside the brain of Dr. Richard Bandler because he created NLP. He's got 5 PhDs in mathematics and logic. So he's managed to create mathematical formulas out of language. And his level of being able to do that is masterful when you watch him do it. And so that is, if I could rob that skill from his brain and just have it, then that's who I would borrow from.
Amazing. Jen, I've just loved every second of this. Thank you so much. People can find you on Instagram, right?
Yes, they can. I'll spell my name. It's a nod to my French past life. JEUNEJENNI. And you can find me on the Mind Your Business podcast. I am James's co-host on Mind Your Business. So you can hear my voice a lot over there. And if you're in James's
you're doing
world,
a great job.
Oh, thank you so much. I just feel so flattered when I was so nervous to take on co-host seat because I admire what he does so much. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope I'm able to support you and guide the conversation to the level that you do. But yeah, we have so much fun recording together.
You absolutely add so much value to it. And I agree. Like I would have been like, no one can do what James does, but actually you guys balance each other out so much, and you add so much value. So everyone go and listen to Jen on Mind Your Business. So thank you so much, my love.
Thank you. What a pleasure. We could seriously talk all day, easily.
Yes, there will be a day where that happens. If you haven't yet heard, I have just released a free journaling course. If you've always wanted to try journaling but just don't know where to start, or you've been hearing how powerful journaling can be but you just don't understand why, or you want to create a daily practice that enhances your life but you just need a little support in doing that without it costing you anything, this course will do all that for you. It is packed with content that will show you just why journaling is important, how to do it, where to start, and how to make it work for you. It is completely free, and that is as a way for me to pay it forward, because journaling really is one of the most integral parts of my growth practice, and I want to give that to you. All you have to do is click on the link in the show notes to get the course sent directly to your inbox. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reconditioned. I am honestly so grateful to each and every person that tunes in. Thank you also for taking responsibility for your own well-being. You should know that just by choosing to listen to podcasts like this that further your well-being, you're moving more deeply into abundance consciousness. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources over at laurenvakneen.co.uk, as well as every recommendation you could ever need in regards to your well-being on the LV Recommends page, all categorized for your ease. Thank you also to our sponsors. These episodes would not be possible without them, so make sure to check them out and get some pretty awesome discounts on the show notes. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get updated each time a new one is released. Thank you. I appreciate you. Reconditioned is proud to be working with Women for Women International, a charity that supports women survivors of war in 8 war-torn countries around the world. You can help a woman survivor of war transform her life today by visiting womenforwomen.org.uk/donate.